If you guys clicked on this video, you probably came for one reason and one reason only. Let's talk about it. First, I am going to introduce myself briefly to you guys, to people who may be new to my channel or just don't know who I am. My name is Maya Angelique Wallace. I am currently a senior here at Christopher Newport University, and I'm a transfer student. I currently am majoring in communications, and I currently serve as a resident assistant in upperclassmen housing. So I oversee basically juniors and seniors here, and I have about 80 residents in my exact building. So a lot of residents, but they're upperclassmen, so it's not overwhelming as a lot of people may assume. So first, I'm going to kind of give you guys a background on how I came to CNU and basically like how I ended up here. A lot of you guys may have already known this, but I am a transfer student, and I basically came from two different colleges. So I'll start off with the first one. My associates from Richard Bland College of William and Mary. I was there for about 2 years, and it was one of the greatest experiences that I've ever had at a 2-year college. I wanted to start off small because I didn't want to go straight to a 4-year then and there, and plus COVID hit, so I didn't want to like jump right into a 4-year. And then I transferred from RBC to a Christian college, which I'm not going to disclose the name because of certain obligations that I just don't want to like say right now until like I feel more comfortable with it. Christian college, and that is kind of where this journey kind of starts. And basically how I ended up at CNU was kind of through that Christian college and kind of experiencing a really hard time and just being able to realize that school wasn't for me, and I decided to leave. Basically at that Christian university, if I get a little shaken up, it is completely normal. There has been a lot of trauma from that school that I have been very hesitant to speak on, but I know that it is needed and something that I need to advocate for. Whew, sorry guys, like this is, oh my God. At that Christian college, I went there in the year of 2022, right after I got my associates. And basically when I first got there, I really did love it. I enjoyed the moment of me being on my own for the first time. And I, at that time, didn't really understand or really knew what a resident assistant was. And basically I got introduced to my RA at the time, and things started off really well. I really had a great time getting to know her and getting to know the environment of what it's like to be on your own. But later and later down the line, there was a lot of conflict with me and the RA, with me and my roommates at the time. Like, there was just so much like things that caused me to go in a really depressive state. And the school did not help me in the way that they thought they did. It wasn't very beneficial to me. It was a very belittling kind of situation where my mental health was just completely out the window, and I've never struggled with those thoughts before in my life. And basically they had me move to a different floor from the one I lived on, and I moved to a floor with a completely different RA. This specific RA at that Christian college was very interesting. I don't want to talk bad on behalf of anybody. If you really want to be an RA, you really have to have heart for it, because if you are not dedicated, if you really could care less about the job, then that will reflect on your performance and how your residents view you. And I can say as a resident, from how that RA was to me, was completely just unprofessional, completely just wrong. I was struggling with depression back then as well, and I would go to that RA to basically see if I could have any resources to help me through that. As she would provide the resources, I discovered later on down the line that she was also talking a lot of really interesting stuff about me and talking about me among other RAs and just among her friends, and it really had me just in this really dark bubble. So I was just really upset, and it got to a point where I had to decide whether it was appropriate for me to either transfer to a different school or for me to continue to get my education at this Christian college and potentially not even like getting a degree from a place that I just didn't appreciate what they did. So I decided in April of 2023 to apply to CNU and to see what it would be like to just go to another school. Now, it is known for people to transfer from a 4-year school to another 4-year school, but because I got my associates and I'm transferring again, like I didn't feel like I should transfer like again because I didn't want to keep like transferring schools. But in this like situation, I did not want to waste money at a place that I wasn't wanted, and I was not wanted at that school at all. Like the way that they would not support mental health and not support the way that some college students may adjust to living on campus was just completely unethical and completely wrong, and I will stand by that no matter, you know, what it is. But I truly believe that school was the reason why I have been so big and so vocal on mental health, because they really took a toll on mine and really showed me that there should be more awareness of mental health on colleges, and that there should be more resources that prepare RAs to know how to handle situations like that, in which CNU has offered me. So that is kind of the background on basically why I came to CNU, how I transferred here, and what kind of enlightened me to apply to be an RA. Before I kind of like hop into my CNU journey, there is one other point that I forgot to mention before about like when I kind of like had this idea to become an RA. So while I was at that college, I was at a place in the spring semester of 23 before I decided to transfer, where I felt the need to like decide like, hey, like what if I do take up a leadership role? Like, yes, I was struggling a lot with my own mental health, but like what if my like mental health struggles could impact someone else and show them like, hey, if I can get through this challenging time, like you can too. So because I was having a lot of issues with res life at that Christian college, and like already having a lot of like really hard times with my RAs, like I already had a feeling that they were not going to hire me as a resident assistant at that Christian school, because they were very specific on what they wanted, and the hiring process there was just something that I just didn't even want to go through, because it just seemed completely unrealistic for someone who was like struggling with mental health and how they kind of treated me. So I decided to apply for a very similar role that a lot of Christian colleges have, and it is basically called a pastoral role RA, kind of like a leadership role, but not an RA fully. So basically this role was kind of having people come over to that person's place. They kind of like showed them Bible verses, kind of taught them, you know, the word of God, and they kind of were like the leadership on the Christian aspect instead of more of like the safety and the security of the residence hall. They kind of were like the spiritual side of it. So I applied for that role back in February of 2023, and for some reason I was like really confident. I was like, I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna be able to advocate for, you know, supporting people through their struggles and teach them the word of God through that. Like I was like, God's gonna use me through that. When I tell y'all, I was at my lowest point that whole month. When I got that decline letter from that ministry team, it hurt me so bad, so bad. Very, very like disheartening and just very hurtful, and I couldn't believe that I got declined. And I was in a very, I'm not gonna lie, I was in a very, very dark place, and I was struggling with many suicidal thoughts and just many negative feelings about myself that I have never really encountered in my life. And it was just a really hard place, and I don't really know how I got through that, but because of God, I got through that. And that's kind of when I found my home at CNU, was just learning that it was time for me to go. It was time for me to go out of the school. It was time for me to leave. I had to peace out, because I knew if I would have stayed any longer, I wouldn't be happy and I wouldn't be respecting what God wanted me to do. Now I'm going to be talking about when I got interested in applying to be an RA here at CNU. So basically during my time at CNU, I have overall, like when I first got here, I had one of the greatest experiences. I really enjoyed the environment. The professors here are so great. They care about you, and I'm just so appreciative of my professors here at CNU. But basically in November of each semester is when like Residence Life will start to try to like recruit people to apply to be an RA. So in November, I kind of was like looking at the application, but because I got so tore up and hurt from that other institution that I was at, getting declined that other position, I was just telling myself, I said, no. I said, I can't do it. I don't think I could apply, because if I get declined, I'm a cry and get upset, and it's gonna hurt even more, because this is about the second time. And I just was like, I can't do it. I procrastinated. It was time for me to submit it, and I kept procrastinating it. And then literally the last day that you could submit an application to apply, I went on and submitted it. I said, God, if you want me to have this job, it's in your will. I'm not gonna, even get excited for it. It's in your hands. So I would say the major difference between like me applying for the pastoral role at that Christian college versus me applying to be an RA was that at that Christian college with that pastoral role, I was very confident I was going to get it. And I had this mindset like, oh, I'm going to get it. And then because I was so hurt from that, this whole mindset of me going through the RA hiring process, I was like, God, you have it. If this is made for me, then you'll have it. Like, I never thought twice about like getting excited or getting happy because I just didn't want to get hurt again, which is completely valid. I applied in November. The application was on this platform called Handshake, which is very common for colleges to use. And basically, I didn't hear back till January of last year, which is 2024. And basically, Res Life emailed me saying, hey, we really like your application. Would you like to come in for a one-on-one interview so we can get to know you better? I was like, what? I said, first of all, I never got that far enough in an application to get an interview like for a role like this. So the fact that I got an interview was already such like a green flag, and I was like so grateful. So basically in January of 24, I had an interview with actually my current boss as of now, and then a couple of other RAs that help recruit other RAs to become one. And I'm not gonna lie, I was nervous. I was so nervous, but the biggest advice that I would give to someone who is going through that kind of like interview and that recruitment is they always say be yourself, and I 100% stand by that. I was being my authentic self. I basically told them when I'm saying in this video about my other college experience, how I was treated by my RAs in my other school, and just how my experience got so much better by being here and seeing how Res Life treats their residents here at CNU, and just being so authentic and real. And I really don't think I would have been able to say that if I didn't have that experience at my other school, but everybody's story is so differently. So truly go into your interview with confidence and just know like, hey, they understand that you're nervous, they get it, it's a really big job, but like you really just have to go in there like knowing that like if this is meant to be, it's gonna happen. So I had about 3 sets of interviews. That's how the interviews work with one-on-one. You speak to the residential fellow, you speak to the director, and then I think you speak to like a couple RAs, and then they kind of come together and kind of decide what's next. So after the one-on-one interviews, I think I didn't hear back for about another week or so. And then in February, I got selected to be a part of a series that they have at CNU called Traits. And it's basically like a training for RAs that are currently like, in the process of potentially getting hired. This is like the last step of, the hiring process. And basically it's a month-long process, and it is about an hour and a half long. And basically you just go in there and get to learn more about the role and the position, and just being able to talk to other RAs, be able to talk to like other fellows and the exec and the assistant director, and just kind of getting comfortable with the role. During the whole time though, they are basically interviewing you, and they're kind of seeing how you're interacting with people and how like you're helping people. So like I said before, in the one-on-one interviews, be yourself, come in as you are. If you try to change yourself, if you try to fake it out, if you try to like not be authentic, people can notice when you're being real and when you're being fake. Sometimes they can catch it, sometimes they won't catch it. It's important to be yourself, because if you're not, like, even when you get the role and you're still acting not like yourself, it is going to be exhausting. So please, please, please come in there as yourself. You will thank yourself later. Basically, after Traits, which was a month long, I was just waiting to kind of hear back. I didn't know exactly when they were going to get back to me, but basically as an RA or like in this role, they kind of get back with you during the process of housing selection. So while I'm trying to wait for them to get back with me, if I got the role or not, I'm still actively applying to see like who I could potentially live with for the next semester, like what housing I need to get, because you don't know like what you'll get. So like even if you're waiting for the application, like don't rely on that, because I know like it can be very exciting to think you're gonna, wait for it, whatever, but still have a backup plan. I still applied for like other housing on campus. In case I got declined the job, I still would have like housing on CNU's campus. So biggest advice, still apply for housing. Do not wait for the application because sometimes it will come after the due date of housing. So be sure to apply. Don't forget. It's like a random day. I remember the day exactly. It was February 26th of 2024. I was chilling on my bed. I was talking to someone on the phone, and I was just kind of like relaxing, not thinking twice about the application anymore. I kind of was like, hey, like, you know, at this point, we will see what happens. And around 5 o'clock, I got a email from Res Life saying, congratulations, you have been selected to be a resident assistant on like such and such campus. So like I said, upperclassmen. I started bawling my eyes out because I truly just couldn't. It amazes me how God works, because during this whole process, like, I again was just not even really thinking about it. I said, if it comes, it comes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But like I said, if I'm a Christian, but if God really wants you in something, or if you really are meant to be in something, like, you will get it, or you will get something very, very similar. And that's kind of how God worked for me. And it happened exactly on the day that I basically got declined from that pastoral role at that Christian college. So it was just amazing how God like had me have a rejection and then have a redirection to seeing you, and then getting a job that I actually really did want, because that was the role I wanted in the first place, was to be an RA. And I can't stop smiling sometimes because I just can't process that God made it work the way that He did. That you guys kind of have the background of what it was like for me to apply, what it was like for me to get the job, and like basically the background of why I became an RA. Now I'm going to be talking about me being physically in the role right now and kind of experiencing what it's like to be here as a RA at CNU. So first, when you become an RA, you obviously sign a lot of paperwork before you even like start the job. Like, they have you sign contracts and like basically things that you would sign at a job. But this specific job is a little bit different because one, it's a job that requires safety and security of other people. You are responsible for other people, so you want to make sure that you are signing paperwork to basically say that. So you basically sign paperwork first, you submit everything, and then in August you have your first training of the year. So in August of 24, it is a week and a half long training of basically getting to know what an RA is and getting to know your staff, your fellow, and the people you're going to work with. And from there, you basically sit for like, it's like a 12-hour a day for the next like 10 days of training. It's very, very long. It's very long, but it's very much needed so you can be prepared for what's to come. So that's a little side note. If you are becoming an RA, you will have to sit through training every year, because that's just kind of what the job is. So once training wraps up and kind of like once all that stuff happens, like obviously I'm not going to really talk about the details of training, because like I feel like that is something that you would have to do in person. You would have to actually see, because it's a lot of details and some things I still can't share right now because of FERPA and other things that we signed. So there's still some things I'm not going to share. But basically, after training, we take our group photo, which I'll have right here, and then we also get our uniform and we kind of get started with the semester. So once the semester starts, we kind of have like our duty rounds, which basically means when an RA sits at the front desk for a couple of hours and we do our walks around each building and kind of make sure everybody's safe. And that's kind of like the summary of like what it's like to kind of start off talking about my favorite part of how being an RA helps impact like my mission of being a mental health advocate. So with being an RA, there are, like I said before, there are a lot of different things that we are required to do by the school's policies and just like things in general. So basically one of those main things as being an RA is that you are going to be an outlet. You're going to be that person that your residents are going to come to if they need help. They're not going to always want to call the cops. They're not always going to want to like talk to like a professional right away. They sometimes will come to you first because one, you live in the building with them, and two, you should be very approachable to them for them to come when they need you. So basically, like I said, it's kind of complicated because I cannot share the exact details of like what happened, but there has been many instances where I've had to use like, you know, my own background of me struggling with mental health to help other residents who have also struggled with mental health, and like being able to support them and just being able to like share my story and being able to like show them like, hey, like you can get through this, like you're not alone. But I'm not gonna lie, it can be very, very scary and very intimidating when you first have like your first interaction with a resident who is struggling. It can be very scary because like you're still learning the role. I'm a first year RA, like I'm still learning the role as it, and I'm still trying to figure things out. But the one thing about being an RA is that you're never alone. Well, I guess there are going to be some situations where you may be physically alone with the resident, like you're never like alone, because they always give us a number to call, like our boss, call like our, you know, our staff, and we always have some form of someone available to like help us through that. So like don't be intimidated when you have like your first interaction with a resident. If they come with you with an issue, with mental health concerns, or like anything like that, like you still always have someone to like help you get through that. And they sometimes will even send somebody like a fellow with you to like help you kind of like get through it. So you're never alone in this job. I know it seems like you are sometimes, but like truly they always have resources, and I have used those resources most of the time when I need to use. That basically sums up my story, my experience as being a resident assistant. I am so incredibly thankful for this role. I'm so thankful for seeing you, like to see the potential that I have, and just being able to serve in a leadership role that I have been dreaming of since like 2 years ago, and it just means so much to me. Like I said, of course, there are like smaller details that obviously I won't be able to share this video, because there are a lot of fine lines with this role that you just don't want to share to like the internet or like anybody on campus, unless if you're working directly with that person. But I am open to answering any questions that you guys have. You can either send them in the comments, you can follow me on Instagram and DM me any messages if you want to be more private, and I will get back to you guys with any questions that you may have. I am just so thankful and honored to be able to make this video for anybody who is applying to be an RA and going through the recruitment process. It is definitely a rewarding experience, and just know, like, as someone who got declined a position before, like, as they all say, rejection is redirection. So even if you don't get this role, like, it doesn't mean that you don't have the qualities. It doesn't mean that you're not like a good student. Like, not at all. Res Life does look for many different elements, and it might not have anything to do with you. It could just be like what they are looking for in that moment. So I know it's coming from someone who had a really hard time accepting that rejection, but truly it works out at the end, and you will thank yourself later for going through with that process and knowing like, hey, it hurt in that moment, but I'm so grateful that I have something that I actually want, or something better for me, because it truly changed like my whole perspective on mental health. It changed my perspective on like, you know, leaning onto God more and trusting him more in this process. And obviously I'm not gonna sit here and say like that just because I'm an RA that I have like all of my emotions together. Like, I'm still human. I still cry. I still have days that I, you know, have, you know, really hard days, but I'm so thankful and grateful for the staff that I have and for the mentors that I have in this job, to be able to like talk to and like vent to and hang out with them. Like, you really do have a built-in family sometimes in this role, and it really means a lot. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this video, and I will see you guys in the next video really soon. Love you guys. Mwah.